Hello, good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome to another episode of Crypto Watch. Good evening, everyone. Right, hope everyone is having a great Sunday so far. Right, so for today, we are going to look at gold. Right, if you've seen, the poster for tonight, right, we are going to talk about gold, right, as a potential hedge for market recession, right? Whether it is a good time to actually look at gold at this juncture, right? With the whole stock market seeing high volatility and fears of a market recession, right? Is it a good time, right, to actually think about buying some gold? Right. So what are some of the things you might consider looking at, and what does the future hold for gold? So today we'll delve more into detail for this particular commodity. Right, but before I do so, right, if you are here live with me, right, don't forget to give this video a like once again, right, so that I know that you are here live with me. Right, just click on the thumbs up button, right? And let's proceed for today's session. So good evening, everyone, once again, right? For those of you who are joining me for the very first time, right, let me do a brief introduction about myself. So I'm the trade engineer, or TTE for short, right? I have, 6 to 7 years of trading experience. I've traded numerous instruments, including stocks, futures, forex, and cryptocurrency, right? And I've helped numerous aspiring traders unlock their best trade and unleash the trading potential within them. All these using just some simple yet effective techniques. And before I start the session proper, a few disclaimers down here, right? While the accuracy of information is ensured as far as possible, there would not be any responsibility taken for any loss of inconvenience created by any omission or error. The ideas presented here tonight are just for references and educational purposes only. And today, for our presentation, right, my presentation tonight is not intended in any way to give trading advice or recommendations to buy or sell any trading instrument. And me, the trade engineer, shall not have any liability for any loss or expense whatsoever relating to the trading decision undertaken by you, the audience. Right, and last but not least, all copyrights reserved. All right, let's now delve into the topic proper, right, for gold. Right, so for gold, right, let's do a brief background here, right, on what are some of the factors, right, that can actually influence the price of gold. Right, so over here, right, I've taken this picture from Investopedia, right, and I think this gives a very good summary of some of the pertinent factors, right, that might influence the price of gold. Right, so we have the gold production, right, that affects the supply of gold, and jewelry demand, right, that affects the demand side of things for gold. Right, reserves, right, such as central reserve, other country reserves, they also buy gold, right, to store as a part of their reserves. Right, the value of US dollar, right, so if maybe following gold closely, right, usually how it's traded as paper gold, right, it's usually traded as XAU and against USD, right? So the denominator, right, usually USD, right? So the US dollar will also influence the price of gold, right? And there is also the inherent market volatility, right? Because gold is typically seen as a safe haven. Right, and before I delve further, right, I think I'd like to show this short video, right, and taken from the same article, right, from Investopedia. It explains the factors, right, different factors that might influence the price of gold. Right, so let me play the video, and hopefully you can hear the video.
How gold prices are determined. Gold has always fascinated humanity, and its demand has not wavered. It remains a precious metal and maintains strong investor and manufacturer appeal. Several factors drive its price. Central banks have diversified their reserves in recent years by adding gold and reducing paper currencies, which has raised gold's price. A stronger U.S. dollar usually drives gold's price down. Investors trade in dollars when currency is strong, but prefer gold when the dollar is weak and the economy is uncertain. The basic theory of supply and demand applies to world jewelry and industrial demand. So, gold's price rises as demand increases for consumer goods involving gold, such as jewelry and electronics. Gold can be a hedge against currency devaluation, inflation, or deflation, and it can provide protection during times of political uncertainty. For example, investors turn to gold's enduring value after the 2008 financial crisis. There's more investment in gold than returns on bonds. Equities or real estate fall as well, which drives gold's price up. And of course, gold's price rises the more difficult and expensive it is to mine.
All right. Right, so let's give a brief snapshot of what influence the price of gold. And here's a quick quick summary from my end, right, on what can actually influence the price of gold, right, whether it can increase or decrease the price of gold. Right, I'll point out some pertinent factors, right, that have been the focus recently. So first of all, right, if you're following the news, right, there is this surging inflation, right, worldwide, right, in many countries nowadays, and this is actually good in terms of gold prices, right, because primarily, right, gold can be seen as a hedge against inflation, right, as rising prices leads to higher gold prices. Right, and we also have the geopolitical tensions, right, such as the Russia-Ukraine war that is still ongoing for many months now. Yep, and gold is also seen as a safe haven, right, especially during times of war. World economic problems, right? So we also seen the fear of recession, right, of economic recession, and usually, right, as you see earlier in the video, in the last financial crisis, right, it was also a lot of investors switched to gold at that time. So likewise, if we see an impending recession, right, you might see a lot of investors flock over to gold, right? Because gold is typically seen as something that has enduring value, right? That doesn't get eroded with time. And with recession, right? A lot of stock prices might get hit and might fall down further, right? So gold might be seen as a safe haven as well. Right, central bank reserve, right? So I think in the video you also mentioned briefly on this, right? And this is something that is ever there or always there, omnipresent, right? That this is always the case, right? Basically, many countries, right, have reserves in gold, right? And if more of them, right, diversify their monetary reserves into gold, right, that might affect the supply of gold as well. Right, and also on the other hand, like on gold mining as well, that also affects the supply of gold. Right, nowadays, right, I think there is harder to dig for gold. Right, they basically have to dig deeper for quality gold reserves. Right, so that also affects the supply of gold. Right, and that also influences the price of gold as well. Right, on the other hand, right, there could also be a decrease in gold prices. Right, and lately this also has been the news as well, with the Fed raising interest rate, right, and that also caused the possibility of rising treasury bond yields, right, and that might create this possibility, right, that investors might switch to bonds, right, and if that's the case, right, there could be accompanied by a decrease in gold prices. And this is a point that related to that, like Fed raising interest rates, right, and likewise, investors might also switch to higher yielding investments from gold. Right, strong USD, right, as what I mentioned earlier, right, the gold price is typically dollar denominated, right, there is XAU, right, that's gold, the symbol for gold, right, versus USD, right. So if there is a strong USD, right, this ratio would basically drop, right, and it might be accompanied by a decrease in gold prices. Right, and very recently, right, we also saw news on China lockdown, right, with the Shanghai lockdown, because of the resurgence of COVID, right? So that also could have an impact in gold, right? What is argued here, right, is that this lockdown might actually reduce the demand for gold products such as jewelry, right, with fewer tourists right out shopping for this jewelry, right. So this is something that was a theory postulated in the news, right. But nevertheless, it could be real, it could be fake, but that could be potentially a reason, right? If it really affects the demand by a substantial amount. Right, so that's a brief background, right, surrounding what are the influencing factors, or fundamental reasons, right, affecting gold prices, right. But as always, right, that's not sufficient, and we also want to look at the outlook, right, of gold, right, from another standpoint, right. But you can also use this background as the backdrop. Right, but before I delve into the details like of my personal outlook of gold, right, don't forget to hit the like and love button if you're enjoying my sharing so far. Right, and being the trade engineer, right, I would delve into the technical aspects of gold, right? As I always believe that the technical aspects offer some hints of what will happen in the future, right? So here's the price chart for gold, right? On the monthly basis, right? It's a monthly chart, right? And let me go through each of the details one by one. Right. So first of all, right, I have to point out, this particular line down here, right? This is the uptrend line, and you can see that it has been tested numerous times in the past, and very recently here as well. In the last week, it actually tested this uptrend line even more, right? It actually went slightly below this uptrend line, but eventually for the week, right, it actually closed above this uptrend line, right? So it seems like there is still some support, right, for this uptrend line, right? But increasingly, there seems to be some uh, it seems like price is trying to break down, right? A bit unsuccessfully last week, right, or other this week, right? So let's see how this goes. But as of the moment, it is still supported by this line, right? So if this remains supported, right, there could be a bounce in prices. If there is going to be a convincing breakdown, right, we could also see bearish momentum kicking in, right? So that's something we'd like to watch out for, right? At least on this longer term time scale. Right, and another thing I point out is this MACD, right, on the monthly time scale as well, right? So you can see that it was previously negative, but the gap narrowed, and eventually, right, very recently, it actually made a crossover, right? So if it actually makes the moves into the positive region, that could be a confirmation of a bullish reversal for gold, right? If not, we could see a persistence, right, a continuation of the bearish momentum. Also on the money chart, right, we also can see something bearish forming as well, in the sense that you can see this double top pattern right over here, right, as well as some bearish divergence, right. You can see the second top is accompanied by a lower high in the RSI, right. So that is something what we call as a bearish divergence. So this typically indicates that there could be a price correction, right? But we definitely still need to see confirmation signs for this, for us to turn bearish for gold. Right, and on the money chart as well, right? We also can identify the support and resistance levels, right? So the first resistance level is somewhere where it actually hit the high here, right at the double top, at about $2070, right? That is on the longer term resistance level. And on the support level, the horizontal support level, right? This is something to watch out for in the longer term as well. That is about $1680. And it was tested here as well, 2 times here in the past. And so this is something to watch out for any long-term upside or downside, right? If prices bounce up, this resistance level is something we want to watch out for, right? But if it breaks down, right, this could be the level, right, where support comes in. And now let's switch, right, to the shorter time scale, right, to the daily chart, right? And on the daily chart, right, we can first of all, see this downtrend line, right? And what we see is something very interesting here, right? You can see that it was tested, numerous times before. It was, trading below this downtrend line until very recently, right? You can see that, on the last day, right? Actually last Friday, 20th of May, it actually just crossed this downtrend line, right? So this is something positive on the short term, right? It could imply that there might be a bounce in prices on the shorter time scale, and we got to see whether this, the price continues to remain above this line, right? If it remains above this line, we might see a bullish rebound in the short term. Likewise, on the daily chart, we can also draw some support and resistance level, right? This is on the shorter time scale, right? So the levels will be slightly different as compared to the monthly chart, right? So on the first horizontal resistance level, right, it is about a lower level, about 1915 US dollars, right? This was previously the support that was formed in the past. As for the first horizontal support, right, it is the previous low over here, right? It was tested about 1785 US dollars, and also a support down here. So these are levels to watch out for, right, for any short-term upside or downside, right? And let's see what happens, right, in the following week. Daily MACD, right? So daily MACD seems very similar to the monthly MACD pattern, right? You can see that the gap also narrowed, right, and it actually just made a crossover as well, right? So if it actually continues to move in the positive region, right, we could see a bullish reversal. If not, bearish momentum might actually continue. Right, so with all this taken totality, right, what can we conclude for gold? Right, so this is just my own opinion, right? Please do your own due diligence as well. So in my opinion, right, it does appear to be quite bullish, right, on the shorter daily time frame. And that is primarily because we see some confirmation signs, in the sense that the downtrend line has been broken, right? You can see the downtrend line is broken on 20th of May. And daily MACD has just made a crossover. Right? So we get two signs here, right, that appears to show that it is bullish on the shorter time scale. So if you are a mid-term swing trader, right, you might be enticed, to place a long entry, right, at the current price. But of course, as a trader, you should always put a stop loss, right? And I would suggest, you put it slightly below the first horizontal support, and you take profit, right, at somewhere at the first horizontal resistance level, right, somewhere around here. Right, but on the longer monthly time frame, right, the signal appears to be pretty mixed, right? If you recall, right, we mentioned that there was some hints of bearishness with a double top pattern, the bearish divergence, right, on the monthly time scale, as well as that possibility of breaking an uptrend line, right? In fact, last week it went below, but eventually it closed above that monthly uptrend line. Right, but of course, right, there are also signs of strength, right? With the recent price, right, this week actually closing above the uptrend line, and you can see that the monthly MACD also made a crossover, right? So it appears to be mixed on the monthly time frame. We are not quite sure, right, if whether so you're investing. If you're investing in gold, right, do be cautious, right? There could be some bounce in the short term, right? There could be some bounce, on the short term, but in the long term, we aren't quite too sure, right? There could be a correction for gold, right? Or it could continue to bounce back up. So we do have to wait and see for more confirmation signs on what is to happen in the longer time frame. Right, so this is my analysis for gold, right? Do let me know, right, if you agree or you disagree my analysis, right, in the comments below, right? And once again, right, if you're enjoying my sharing so far for tonight, don't forget to hit that like or love button, right, so that I know that you are loving the sharing so far. Right, and that actually concludes my section for gold. And now I shall proceed, right, to the next section, right, that we are always covered week after week on Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin, is something that I cover every week, right? Because all of you are probably crypto investors or traders, right? And Bitcoin, being the highest market capitalization coin, right? It does leads the market for cryptocurrency, and the direction of Bitcoin might influence the rest of the other coins. right? So it's important to know like what's the outlook for Bitcoin, so that that will guide our decisions for next week. Right. So I'll examine tonight how has Bitcoin performed and what's next for Bitcoin. But before I do so, right, here's a quick recap for Bitcoin last week. So I point out 8 things, right, to watch for Bitcoin. And I first point out on the weekly chart, right, there is this bearish divergence, right, that we saw, on RSI and prices. And also point out this first horizontal support, right, about 28,900, and it was testing, this level last week. Right, and also point out if it actually breaks down further, we could be looking at these other 2 horizontal support levels. Right, and on the shorter time frame, on the daily chart, we also point out the other horizontal support, like on the shorter time frame, and these are some levels to watch out for if there is further downside. Right, and on the other side, right, we also point out the horizontal resistance levels, right, on the daily chart. Right, if there is a bounce, we could be looking at these levels. And the downtrend line, it was still trading below this downtrend line last week, right? And we wanted to see what will happen this week. RSI, right? RSI actually crossed in the oversold region last week, and we might see a short-term bounce as concluded last week. And last but not least, right, the 8th thing that I mentioned was the MACD, right? It was negative, right, last week, but it was slightly less so at the tail end, right, as we saw. And we weren't quite sure whether the gap will continue to narrow this week. Right, so that was something that we concluded last week, in case some of you might have forgotten, right? And if you want to find out the my full analysis, right, you can catch the last week video, or you can head on down to my TikTok channel, where I also give a summary, right, of some of the things that I mentioned in my videos. Right, so let's look at how Bitcoin has performed, right, ever since then, right, for the past 7 days. So here, right, I have the Bitcoin price chart, updated price chart on the weekly time scale. Right, so this is the same horizontal support that we showed last week, right? Same level, 28,900. And you can see that this week, right, it has continued to test this level. Right, in fact, this is quite a small candle, but in fact, later you see on the daily time scale, right, prices were pretty on the range this week. Right, and this is the daily time scale, right? You can see that the price, are basically, just ranging around, not really moving anywhere, right? No big movements whatsoever for this week, right? So it was moving within a tight range, right? This tight range here. Right, so we have this, we point out that horizontal support on the daily chart as well, right? And you can see that, for the entire week, right, since it was ranging, right, it just continued to trade above this support line for this week. Downtrend line, right? For this week, it continued to trade below this downtrend line, right? Not much movement. RSI, right? So last week pointed out that it dropped into the oversold region here, and we can see that in this week, it bounced out of the oversold region, right? And just remained slightly on the low side of things, right? At the 30 plus to 40, below 40, right? So that is something to take note of. And MACD, right? MACD, you can see that last week we saw that the tail end gap was narrowing, but it was still negative. And we saw a crossover this week, and it continued to be positive, right? That is something that is pretty positive, at least on the shorter time scale. Right. So this was a trading, right? The suggested trading plan last week that I mentioned. So what I mentioned here is that if we could enter a long position, right? If we see some support, right? And the first support holds, and MACD gap becomes less negative, and we can actually add longs if we see more positive signs, right? In terms of the horizontal resistance level clearing or the downtrend line being broken. That is something to take note. But on the short side of things, right? That is to sell first and buy back later. Right, we could enter a short position if the support breaks convincingly, or the MACD MACD actually becomes more negative, and we can take profit right at the other 2 horizontal support levels. right? But of course, over here, I did put a note down here that the first horizontal support of 28,900, right? If it's broken convincingly, there could be further downward pressure and bearish momentum for Bitcoin. So what happened for this week, right? As you can see, the price was ranging, right? It was ranging within that tight range. So there's actually no strong signal to actually go long or short for this week, right? So we probably, we'll probably have stayed sidelines for this week. If not, we could just take a small profit, if it actually makes, that small movement within that tight range. Right. So with that, what does the future hold for Bitcoin? Right. Let's now take a look with these updated prices. But before we delve deeper, right, once again, don't forget to give this video a like or a love, right, if you're enjoying the sharing so far. All right, and let's now delve deeper, right, into the future analysis for Bitcoin. Right. So once again, right, I have this weekly chart, right, weekly chart for Bitcoin, and I've also drawn the same horizontal support, right, at 28,900. And as I pointed out previously, right, it has continued to test this level. So, the same concept applies, right? If we see a breakdown of this level, there could be a breakdown further down to that other support levels that I drawn previously, right? If not, there could be a short-term bounce from this level, right? So this is quite a critical level to watch out for, and this, that's why I actually draw this weekly chart to give a more bigger picture outlook. Right, in a shorter time frame, right, on the daily chart, right, as what I pointed out, right, in recent times, right, this week, we are seeing it, trade within this tight range, right? So on this tight range, we can draw, the immediate horizontal resistance as well as the immediate horizontal support levels, right? So the first horizontal support, right, within the tight range is 28,600, and the first horizontal resistance is at 31,400, right? So it's trading within this range. Any breakout, right, whether it's breakout, break above this resistance or break below this support, right, could lead to further momentum, right? So if it breaks above this resistance, there could be further momentum to the upside. Right? If it breaks down below this support, it could have further momentum to the downside. Right, and if prices break out from this tight range, right, and see some bounce up, we could be looking at higher resistance level, right? And these are the two resistance level we could be watching out for, right? About 34,100, 34,300 for the first, right? This was the previous support here. The second resistance level is somewhere around, 37,200. Right? So that was the previous support here and here as well. But on the other hand, right, if it breaks down below this tight range, right, we could be seeing that low that was clocked previously in the past, and that is corresponding to a level about 26,500, right? So it's drawn here. So these are some of the levels to watch out for, right, after a range breakout, right, after the prices break out from that tight range. Right, and this is the same downtrend line, right? So prices are still trading below this downtrend line. So that's something to take note of, right? It's still in the downtrend. And eventually, right, if Bitcoin is headed for new highs, right, it does have to break above this downtrend line, right, for it to have further upside. If not, it might, just bounce down from this downtrend line, and this might still remain the strong resistance level, right? So it has to form a higher high, right, in order to start a new uptrend. Right, and the MACD, right? So MACD, why it has just crossed over the positive region, right, as I mentioned earlier, right? And we can see that, if this continues, right, if we continue to see more positive gap, it could imply a sustained bullish reversal. But if not, like on the other hand, if it crosses back down and becomes negative again, then we might see bearish momentum kicking in once again. Over here, right, if all this taken totality, what is my suggested trading plan? On this note, I'd like to point out once again that this is my own suggestion, but please do your own due diligence once again. So likewise, right, for traders out there, right, you could take this into consideration. For long entry, right? For long entry, we could enter a long position if it breaks out from that first horizontal resistance, right? If it breaks out from that tight range and breaks to the upside, right? We could consider a long position, right? And if the MACD remains positive, that is also another confirmation sign. And we can take profit at that first and second resistance level, right? If we actually clears this downtrend line convincingly as well, we could actually add long positions as well. But on the other hand, right, if Bitcoin turns bearish, we could also enter a short entry. And how to gauge whether it is going to turn bearish is if it breaks down below that tight range, right, and the MACD becomes negative. So we could enter a short position and take profit at that previous low that was clocked previously in the past. Right, and once again, I like reiterate, right, or what I mentioned just now, right, that on that longer time frame, right, on the weekly chart, we did see that first horizontal support about 28,900, right. So if that is broken convincing, there could be further downward pressure and bearish momentum for Bitcoin. Right, and that actually concludes my analysis for Bitcoin, right. That's my quick analysis for Bitcoin on the technical side of things. So once again, right, if you have found value in my sharing for tonight, don't forget to hit that like or love button, right, so that I know that you are enjoying my sharing so far. Right, and before I end off for tonight, right, some reminders down here, right. So for those of you who are watching this for the very first time and you're not quite sure how to handle the current market volatility, right, don't worry. I have this guide, this free 7 steps guide on how to weather the market volatility, right. So you could, I'll paste a link in the comments later and you can go ahead and download it for free, right. So for those of you who have been watching my previous video, this is the same link that I've mentioned in the past, right. This is, just a reminder for those of you who haven't downloaded it already. Right, and for those of you who haven't joined my Facebook group as well, you can consider joining my Facebook group. So I'll be sharing, a lot of other things in my Facebook group, right? So I'll be sharing like stocks, futures, anything related to trading, right, on my Facebook group. But do remember to answer the membership questions before applying to join my Facebook group. And I have several social media pages, right? You can follow. I have my Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok channel, right? So the handles are shown here, and you can follow them if you haven't done so already. And if you have enjoyed the sharing for tonight, don't forget to hit that like or love button, as well as leave a comment right down below on what you think of my sharing for tonight, and I will respond to them as soon as I see your questions. Also, to give this video a share, right, so that more people can benefit from my sharing for tonight. And before I end off for tonight, just one last reminder, right, if you haven't seen this poster already, right, so there is going to be another session, right, with the 4 esteemed guests. I'm not sure if you remember them, but they held a session very recently, talking about cryptocurrency, and they're back again, right. So we have Sean Xia, Vanessa Tay, Rudy Lim, and Leslie Liu, right. So they are all very esteemed guests, right. That have numerous accolades, right, to their name, right. So that they are holding another session, right, this coming Tuesday, right, on the 24th of May at 8 p.m. right. So if you are free and available, right, do come on down and join them, right. They'll be talking about cryptocurrency 101, right. So it'll be they're delving more into cryptocurrency and giving you a guide, right, a consumer guide to cryptocurrency. Right, so you're interested, don't forget to hit the get reminder button and join the session, right, join the Facebook live session, right, on that day itself. Right, and with that, I've come to the end of today's session, right. Just like to point out, next week I will not be hosting a session for next week, right, because I have some matters. But don't worry, there'll still be another speaker who will be joining you and giving his own ideas, right, on something related to cryptocurrency, right. So you'll be still at the same time at 9:30 p.m. and I'll see you guys again, the following week, right, at the same time on this Facebook group at 9:30 p.m. Right, so see you guys and hope everyone has a good Sunday evening, right? And hope everyone has a good week ahead, like either investing or trading. All right, and good night, everyone. See you and have a nice day. Bye bye.